Mortal Engines by Philip Reeve, Part 2, Chapter 34, Idea for a Fireworks Display. Tom wiped at his eyes with the heel of one hand and concentrated on his flying, steering the Jenny away from London and up. He wasn't frightened now. It felt good to be doing something at last, and good to be in charge of this huge, wonderful machine. He turned her eastwards, pointing her nose towards the last faint gleam of day on the summit of Zan Shan. He would circle for 20 minutes. It felt as if half that time had passed already, but when he checked the chronometers, he saw that it was less than 2 minutes since Hester jumped down into London and a rushing, brilliant thing slammed into the gondola, and the blast plucked him out of his seat. He clung to a stanchion and saw papers and instrument panels and sputtering lengths of cable, and the shrine with its photographs and ribbons, and Miss Fang's half-read book, all rushing through a jagged hole in the fuselage, tumbling into the sky like ungainly birds. The big window shattered and the air turned sharp and shimmery with flying glass. He craned his neck, peering up through the empty windows, trying to see if the envelope was burning. There were no flames, but overhead a great dark shape slid past, moonlight slithering along its armoured envelope. It was the 13th floor elevator, pulling past the Jenny and performing a lazy victory roll far over the foothills of Shangguo, before it came sweeping back to finish him. Magnus Chrome watches his guests crowd out into the square, gazing up at the glare and flicker of the battle taking place above the clouds. Dr. Chandra, Dr. Chubb, Dr. Splay. It is time to deploy Medusa. Valentine, come with us. I'm sure you are keen to see what we've made of your machine. Chrome, says the explorer, blocking his path. There is something I must say. The Lord Mayor raises an eyebrow, intrigued. Valentine hesitates. He has been planning this speech all evening, knowing that it is what Catherine would have wanted him to say. Now, faced with the Lord Mayor's arctic eyes, he falters, stammering a moment. "Is it worth it, Chrome?" he says at last. "Destroying the shield wall will not destroy the League. There will be other strongholds to defeat, hundreds of fortresses, thousands of lives. Is it really worth so much, your new hunting ground?" There is a ripple of amazement among the bystanders. Chrome says calmly, "You have left it rather late to have doubts, Valentine. You worry too much. Dr. Twix can build whole armies of stalkers, more than enough to crush any resistance from the anti-tractionist savages." He starts to push past, but Valentine is in front of him again. "Think, Lord Mayor, how long will a new hunting ground support us? 1,000 years, 2,000. One day there'll be no more prey left anywhere, and London will have to stop moving. Perhaps we should accept it. Stop now, before any more innocent people are killed. Take what you have learned from Medusa and use it for peaceful purposes." Chrome smiles. "Do you really think I'm so short-sighted?" he asks. "The Guild of Engineers plans further ahead than you suspect. London will never stop moving. Movement is life. When we have devoured the last wandering city and demolished the last static settlement, we will begin digging. We will build great engines powered by heat of the Earth's core and steer our planet from its orbit. We will devour Mars, Venus, and the asteroids. We shall devour the sun itself, and then sail on across the gulf of space. 1,000,000 years from now, our city will still be travelling, no longer hunting towns to eat, but whole new worlds." Valentine follows him to the door and out across the square towards St. Paul's. God, Catherine is right, he keeps thinking. He's as mad as a spoon. Why didn't I put a stop to his schemes when I had the chance? Above the clouds, the rockets flare and bang, and the light of an exploding airship washes across the upturned faces of the crowd, who murmur, "Whoa!" And Hester Shaw crouches at the tier's edge as the resurrected men stalk by, green eyes sweeping the walls and deck plates, steel claws unsheathed and twitching. The cat's creep ended in a small circular chamber with stencilled numbers on the sweaty walls and a single metal door. Beavis slipped the key into the lock and Catherine heard it turn. A crack of light appeared around the door's edge, and she heard voices outside, a long, tremulous "Ooh!" "We're in an alleyway of Paternoster Square," Beavis said. "I wonder why they sound so excited." Catherine pulled out her watch and held it in the thin sliver of light from the door. 10 to 9, she said. "They're waiting for Medusa." He hugged her one last time and whispered quickly, shyly, "I love you." Then he pushed her past him through the door and stepped out after her, trying to look like her captor, not her friend, and wondering if any other engineer had ever said what he just said, or felt the way he felt when he was with Catherine. Tom scrambled through the debris in the listing wreck of the Jenny's gondola. The lights were out and blood was streaming into his eyes from a cut on his forehead, blinding him. The pain of his broken ribs washed through him in sick, giddy waves, and all he wanted to do was lie down and close his eyes and rest, but he knew he mustn't. He fumbled for the rocket controls, praying to all the gods he had ever heard of that they had not been blown away, and sure enough, at the flick of the right switch, a viewing scope rose out of the main instrument panel, and he wiped his eyes and saw the dim upside-down ghost of the 13th floor elevator, framed in the crosshairs, growing bigger every minute. He heaved as hard as he could on the firing controls and felt the deck shift under him as the rockets went shrieking out of their nest beneath the gondola. Dazzling lights blossomed as they hit their target. But when he blinked the bright after images away and peered out, the black airship was still there, and he realised that he had barely dented the great armour envelope, and that he was going to die. But he had bought himself a few more moments at least, for the elevator's starboard rocket projectors were damaged, and she was pulling past him and turning to bring her port array to bear. He tried to calm himself. He tried to think of Catherine, so that the memory of her would be what he took down with him to the sunless country. But it was a long time since he had dreamed of her, and he couldn't really remember what she looked like anymore. The only face that he could call to mind was Hester's, and so he thought of her and the things that they had gone through together, and how it had felt to hold her on the shield wall last night. The smell of her hair, and the warmth of her stiff, bony body through the ragged coat. And from some corner of his memory came the echo of the League rockets that had battered at the 13th floor elevator as she banked away from Batment Gomper, the thick crump of the explosions, and the small bright prickling noise of broken glass. Her envelope was armoured, but the windows could be broken. He lurched back to the rocket controls and retargeted them so that the crosshairs on the little screen were centred not on the elevator's looming gas bags, but on her windows. The gouge beside the viewscope told him he had 3 rockets left, and he fired them all together, the shattered gondola shivering and groaning as they sprang away towards their target. For a fraction of a second, he saw Pewsby and Gench on their flight deck, staring at him, faces wide with silent terror. Then they vanished into brightness as the rockets tore in through their viewing windows and their gondola filled with fire. A geyser of flame went tearing up the companion ladders between the gas bags and blew out the top of the envelope. By the time Tom could see again, the huge wreck was veering away from him. Fire in her ruined gondola and the hatches of her hold. Fire lapping from her steering vanes. Fire unravelling from shattered engine pods. Fire lapping inside her envelope until it looked like a vast Chinese lantern tumbling down towards the lights of London. Catherine stepped out of the alley's mouth into a running crowd, people all around her looking up, some still clutching drinks and nibbles, their eyes and mouths wide open. She looked at St. Paul's. The dome had not yet opened, so it couldn't be that they were staring at. And what was this light, this swelling orange glow that outshone the argon lamps and made the shadows dance? At that moment, the blazing wreckage of an airship came barrelling out of the sky and crashed against the facade of the engineerium in a storm of fire and glass and outflung scythes of blackened metal. A whole engine broke free of the wreck and came cartwheeling across the square towards her, red hot and spraying blazing fuel. Beavis pushed her aside and down. She saw him standing over her, his mouth open, shouting something, and saw a blue eye on the blistered engine, cowling as it tore him away, a whirl of limbs, a flap of a torn white coat, his scream lost in the bellow of twisting metal as the wreckage smashed against the top-tier elevator station. A blue eye on the cowling. She knew it should mean something, but she could not think what. She stood up, slowly, shaking. There were small fires on the deck all around her, and one great fire in the engineerium that cast Halloween light across the whole tier. She stumbled to where the blazing engine lay, its huge propeller blades jutting out of the deck plate like megaliths. Raising her hand to shield her face against the belching heat, she looked for Beavis. He was lying broken in a steep angle of debris, twisted in such impossible ways that Catherine knew at once there was no point even calling out his name. The flames were rising, making his coat bubble and drip like melting cheese. Heat pressing against her face, turning her tears to puffs of steam, driving her backwards over the wreckage and bodies and pieces of bodies. "Miss Catherine!" A blue eye on the engine cowling. She could still see the outline, the paint peeling under the tongues of the fire. Father's ship. "Miss Catherine!" She turned and found one of the men from the elevator station, standing with her, trying to be kind. He took her by the arm and led her gently away, gesturing towards the main part of the wreck, the scorching firestorm in the engineerium. "He wasn't in it, miss." She stared at his smile. She didn't understand. Of course he had been in it. She had seen him there, his dead, gaping face and the flames rising around him. Beavis, whom she had led here, who had loved her. What was there to smile about? But the man kept smiling. "He wasn't aboard, miss. Your dad, I mean. I saw him not 5 minutes ago, going to St. Paul's with the Lord Mayor." She felt the sinister weight of the satchel still hanging from her shoulder, and remembered that she had a job to do. "Come on, miss," said the man. "You've had a nasty shock. Come and have a sit down and a nice cup of tea." "No," she said. "I have to find my father." She left them there and turned away, stumbling across the square, through panicked crowds in smoke-stained robes and party frocks, through the long, shivery bray of sirens, to St. Paul's. Hester was darting towards the Guildhall when the explosion lifted her off her feet and flung her out of the shadows and into the harsh spill of light from the blazing engineerium. She rolled over and over on the quaking deck plate, stunned, her pistol skittering away, her veil torn off. There was a moment of silence. Then noises came crowding in, screams, sirens. She shuffled through her memories of the moments before the blast, trying to put them in some sort of order. That light above the rooftops, that burning thing sliding down the sky, had been an airship. The Jenny Hanover. "Tom," she said, whispering his name to the hot pavement, and felt smaller and more alone than ever before. She pushed herself up on all fours. Nearby, one of the new stalkers had been caught by the blast and cut in half, and its legs were stamping aimlessly about and bumping into things. The shawl that Tom had given her blew past. She caught it, knotted it around her neck, and turned to look for the fallen gun, only to find another squad of stalkers, quite unharmed, closing in upon her from behind. Their claws were fire-coloured slashes in the darkness, and firelight lit their long, dead faces, and she realised, with a hollow stab of disappointment, that this was the end of her. And above the black, silhouetted rooftops of the Guildhall, beyond the smoke and the dancing sparks, the dome of St. Paul's was starting to open.